Nikon announced this morning their Z6 III, and here are my thoughts. I'm Luke Cleland, and I am a wedding photographer based out of Toronto, and if you have watched my channel at all, you know that I am a huge Nikon fan, and I particularly love the Nikon Z6 II. I've been shooting it professionally for the last 2 years. I've made 2 review videos about it, singing its praises. And it was my first camera into the mirrorless world. And one of the most common kind of discussion points is like, well, what about the Z6 III? Should I get the 2? Should I wait for the 3? And here it is. Finally, the day has come. I watched Nikon's launch video this morning, and I'm going to give you my thoughts and tell you what I'm most excited about this new camera. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing is this stacked sensor electronic shutter. One thing to say about this launch video is that I am a nerd, I'm a camera geek, self-identified for sure. I love cameras. I think I know a good bit of the technicalities around photography and cameras, but I will say I kind of had a hard time understanding some of the words. Like, they didn't necessarily use kind of like layman descriptions of what these new features were. So anyways, some of these things, I think I know what I'm talking about, but I may be wrong. You can correct me in the comments if some of these things I'm misinterpreting. So the first thing is like the stacked electronic sensor. For me, it's going to solve some of the issues that I have with the Z6 II, and that is like low light performance in terms of focusing. They really seem to push in this video the ability to be shooting, like lots of pictures, high frame rates, things like that. That isn't necessarily super important to me as a wedding photographer, but it does show that they are pushing the boundaries of their sensors, which means that's going to be great for low light performance and autofocus, things like that. The next thing is internal raw video recording. I think that's what it is. And that's exciting. I don't do a ton of video, but I do video for this YouTube channel. And something that I've always kind of struggled with is that I don't own like an external recorder. I just do everything on my camera. And I would really like the ability to kind of edit the colors of it better. And so my understanding is that you're going to be able to record video raw in your camera, which will give you the ability to, do that editing that I can't do currently on the compressed video that I have. The world's brightest EVF screen. I don't have that many complaints about the Z6 II EVF, but if it's going to be brighter, if it's going to be smoother, hey, that is excellent. And I do a lot of shooting outdoors in bright sun. And so anytime that I'm going to be able to see clearer, have a better grasp at the actual exposure of my images is going to be, I think, really great. Now, part of this sensor talk and the EVF and all of that, they mentioned autofocus capabilities with backlit subjects being increased or better or something like that. And that's actually something that really caught my attention. And that's because as a wedding photographer that shoots in a very light and airy way, and if you look at any of my photos, I shoot a lot of backlit. And that's where my current camera does struggle with that backlit, like trying to get the face, trying to get the person, trying to get the silhouette. So I'm looking forward to seeing how much of an improvement that is. Another thing they mentioned about autofocus is this small face detection. So if you're just like have a little person far away and you're trying to get their face, they said that it will focus up to 3% of the total image on the long side. And so for me, for wedding photographers, that is really helpful because you're not always shooting, with the couple really close to you. Sometimes you're shooting that like huge vista and you want to make sure that the couple is in focus. And speaking of that low light autofocus, they talked about that, there's detection up to -10 EV. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that that's good. And I'm assuming that you're going to be able to focus in low light. That is another real issue when I'm shooting receptions, dancing. Sometimes it's a little bit of a guess and a hope and a prayer, depending on if it's going to focus on something or not. A really interesting aspect that I know that Fujifilm has was applying colors and presets through the NX Studio. Now, I don't know how much you can actually do. Again, they didn't go into much detail explaining this, but it seems like you can customize your own colors for your camera, and then you can load that into your camera and then shoot with your own color presets. So maybe I can rework my light and airy preset and put that into the Nikon Studio. I don't know, but that does seem cool. It does seem like an exciting and interesting way of shooting with your own customized colors. My last two things are the things that I'm kind of most excited about. The last one being the thing I'm very excited about. So the first thing is the Nikon Imaging Cloud. Now this, again, they didn't give too many details about what this means, but what they said was you can send your images via Wi-Fi on your camera to different services. They had an icon of Dropbox. They had Google Drive, I think. They had Lightroom. Now, I've always wanted kind of a more seamless way to be able to send photos, especially to my computer or to Lightroom, to share them that way. And if this works well, which I'm assuming it will be a pretty exciting way to be able to kind of more easily share images. Now, the last thing that I'm very excited about this camera is the new variable flip screen. In my mind, I think something like this is going to be really great for shooting weddings. I shoot a lot of my photos in vertical orientation. I always wish there was a way to have cameras down low and to be able to view it from like a vertical perspective. So that's something I'm really excited about. Also, just video. Because I'm doing YouTube, I want to be able to easily see myself and record myself without having to use a additional monitor. And so the ability of being able to just like flip around the screen does make my life so much easier. So those are the things that I'm most excited about this new camera. My first kind of thoughts and reactions are, is this camera enough for me to just like sell off the 3 Z6 IIs I have and to completely upgrade? I don't know. Honestly, there is nothing like this huge like bombshell that makes me just definitely want to abandon what I have. As a wedding photographer, someone who does events for their business, I still think the Z6 II is a great camera. But I do think that there are some pretty decent upgrades that if budget is not really much of an issue for you, like, of course, getting that new upgraded camera with some of these autofocus things, I think especially could make a big difference. But we will see. I'll have to test out this camera. I'm hoping to get my hands on one and to give you some real world experience of what this upgrade means for us Nikon Z6 people.